All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're cracking open Sula Vineyards, looking at their second quarter results for fiscal year 2025.
Sounds interesting.
It's November 13th, 2024, and we've got a stack of documents here.
Oh, nice.
Sula's press release, their detailed financials, and a presentation they put together for investors.
A lot to unpack.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
So, Sula's been on a pretty impressive run.
they have.
10 straight quarters of growth, which is not easy in any industry, really.
10 quarters is a long time.
Yeah, it is.
It really is, especially with consumer demand softening a little bit lately.
Right.
But they're still finding ways to, expand into new markets.
And not only that, but they're also aiming to be
Yeah.
a net zero emissions winery by 2050.
That's pretty ambitious.
Ambitious is a good word for it.
Yeah, those sustainability efforts are definitely something to watch.
Oh, for sure.
Especially for investors who are, really into ESG, those
Okay.
environmental, social, and governance factors. That's a big deal for them.
Absolutely.
Now, the big question is, do the numbers back up all this positive stuff?
Yeah, let's see.
Let's dive in.
Well, that top line revenue number, at least, looks pretty decent.
Okay.
Up slightly from last year, hitting INR 142 crore.
That's good.
But then you look at profit,
Hmm.
it's down by a significant amount, 37.3% to be exact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's kind of a head scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah, it does raise some questions.
Yeah.
They're growing, but it's like they're not really turning that growth into higher profits.
Right.
So, we're going to have to go beyond just those headline numbers.
Exactly. Got to get into the details.
Yeah.
So what jumps out at you from these financials and the investor presentation?
Well, a couple things, actually.
Okay.
Their own brand's revenue, that's up, which is interesting.
Okay.
And especially in those elite and premium categories.
Okay, so like what, the Source, RSA, Dindori, those kind of brands?
Exactly, the higher priced wines.
Got it.
And seeing growth there tells us something, Some consumers are willing to shell out more for those higher end bottles,
Interesting.
even if they might be cutting back on everyday wines, maybe.
Right, so like splurging on special occasions.
Exactly, it could be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And their wine tourism revenue, that's up a bit too.
Oh, really?
Probably thanks to more visitors and them spending more at the wineries.
Yeah, their wine tourism stuff has always been impressive.
Oh, it really is.
It's not just about selling wine, it's like a whole experience.
Yeah, they've got beautiful vineyards, the tastings, tours,
Right.
gourmet meals.
They really make it a destination.
Exactly.
But even with all that, though, it sounds like their overall growth was still kind of held back
It was.
by that slowdown in consumer spending.
Yeah, especially in urban areas.
Right. And I think I saw something in the financials about disruptions in a couple of key markets, too.
Yeah, there were some temporary hiccups in Karnataka because of changes in the excise policy.
Right.
And in Delhi, where the excise portal was shut down.
Right at the end of September.
Late September, yep.
Okay.
And then you can't forget their expenses. Those have jumped up.
Oh, yeah. Especially sales and marketing costs, right?
Especially those, that's a big one.
Okay, so we've got softening demand in some spots, disruptions in others, and these rising costs.
Uh-huh.
Starting to get a clearer picture now of why profit took a hit,
It is.
even though revenue went up.
Yeah, it's more complicated than just looking at those first couple of numbers, that's for sure.
Definitely more to it than meets the eye,
Yeah, a lot more.
for sure.
And it'll be interesting to see how Sula handles these challenges going forward.
Yeah, because they do seem pretty focused on sustainability, too, which we touched on earlier.
Uh-huh.
What's their strategy there, and what does it mean for investors?
Well, their net zero emissions by 2050 goal, that's ambitious, no doubt about it.
It is.
They're investing in things like solar power, water conservation, waste reduction, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And it's not just about appealing to those ESG investors. It
Right.
could also save them money in the long run.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they're expanding their wine tourism facilities. And they just acquired Indie Wines, which gives them more capacity in vineyards,
Right. Plus, they're pushing into new markets.
like Andhra Pradesh, which just opened back up to wine sales.
After a 5-year ban.
Huge opportunity, right?
Huge. Andhra Pradesh was one of the biggest wine markets in India before that ban.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're getting creative with distribution, too.
Oh,
Partnering with the canteen stores department.
which serves the Indian Armed Forces.
Yep. And they're resuming shipments to the Border Security Force.
So even with those recent challenges, they're not just sitting around.
Not all.
They're investing, expanding, looking for new customers.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Can Sula keep up this impressive growth? Their management seems to think so.
I do.
But are they being a bit too optimistic?
That's what we'll try to figure out next. We'll see what management's saying, analyze some key numbers, and see if their optimism is justified.
Sounds good to me.
Because there are a few things in the financials that, might raise an eyebrow or two.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting.
It's where the fun begins.
We've got all this data, but now we've got to connect the dots.
Exactly.
See what story it's telling us.
The story behind the numbers.
Exactly.
Love it.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into all that.
Sounds good. So management's outlook.
Yeah, let's hear it.
They know about the recent challenges, obviously.
Right.
But they're pointing to some good signs, too.
Like what?
Strong festive demand, for one.
Okay.
The impact of expanding into these new markets, and the return of SulaFest.
Oh, SulaFest is back.
It is.
I've heard that's quite an event.
It's a big one, yeah.
Lots of music, food.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, plenty of wine.
Definitely a lot of wine.
Yeah.
It attracts a really diverse crowd,
Like who?
Wine enthusiasts, obviously, but also people who just love music.
Right.
Anyone looking for a fun weekend getaway, really.
Makes sense.
And for Sula, it's a chance to show off their wines,
Yeah.
build that brand awareness,
Right.
create a really memorable experience.
Smart move, really.
It is.
It's not just about the sales at the event itself.
Right.
It's about that lasting impression.
Yeah. Building loyalty.
Exactly.
Low-term thinking.
Okay, but back to those financials for a sec.
Sure.
Any red flags in there that kind of jump out at you?
Well, their debt has gone up. Their
Yeah.
net debt to EBITDA ratio is 1.8x.
Okay, and for those of us who aren't, financial whizzes,
Right.
what exactly does that mean?
So EBITDA, that's basically a company's profit
Okay.
before you factor in things like interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Got it.
So this ratio, it tells us how easily Sula can cover their debt payments with their earnings.
Okay, so a ratio of 1.8x, is that bad?
It's not necessarily a screaming alarm bell, but it is something to keep an eye on.
Okay, something to watch.
Yeah, it suggests they're using debt to fuel their growth.
Right, which is pretty common,
It is.
but investors are going to want to see that ratio go down.
As those investments start bringing in more profit.
Right, got to strike that balance.
Exactly.
So it all comes back to profitability.
It does.
Sula's management, they're optimistic,
Yeah.
but I'm sensing you're maybe a little more cautious.
Well, I think a little caution is always a good thing.
Okay.
Especially when profits are dropping, even though revenue's going up.
Right, so you see potential, but also some risks.
Exactly.
What kind of risks are we talking about here?
That slowdown in consumer spending, especially in the cities,
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Okay.
Sula's premium brands, they seem to be doing all right,
Right,
but their success depends on people who can still spend money.
even when the economy is a bit wobbly,
Exactly. So if that spending dries up,
then Sula could be in trouble.
it's possible.
And those temporary disruptions they had in Karnataka and Delhi,
Yeah, those are a little worrying too.
even though they're getting fixed.
All right, they are being resolved.
But it shows how risky it can be to rely so much on just a few markets.
For sure.
Makes you wonder if they're spreading themselves a little thin.
It does make you think,
Expanding is great for growth, but
but it comes with its own set of headaches.
definitely.
And then there's those rising expenses. We can't forget those.
Right, all that marketing and sales stuff.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of money into promoting their brands.
Which, only makes sense if those investments actually lead to more sales.
Exactly, and ultimately higher profit.
Right, that's the end goal.
It is.
So for someone looking at this from an investor's point of view,
Yeah.
what are the key things to take away from all this?
I think the key is to look past all the hype and the excitement
Okay.
and really focus on the fundamentals.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. Sula is a leader in a growing market, no doubt.
Right.
They've got a strong brand. They're coming up with new stuff. Yeah, they're making smart moves,
Well,
but they're also facing some real obstacles.
Why, real challenge.
And those challenges, you can see them in their shrinking profits.
So don't just get caught up in all the buzz.
Right. Look deeper.
Look at the data, form your own opinions.
Exactly. Investing always has some risk.
Of course.
And with Sula, the potential rewards, they're there,
Yeah.
but so are the risks.
Right. Got to weigh those carefully.
And then each investor has to decide if Sula is the right fit for them.
Right. For their portfolio.
Exactly.
Okay. I think we've covered a lot here.
We have.
But I want to zoom out for a second.
Okay.
Look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Sula's story. It's not just about one company.
Right.
It's a reflection of how The whole Indian wine market is changing.
That's a great point. What we're seeing with Sula, it's part of this bigger trend.
Right?
The Indian wine market is maturing.
Interesting.
Consumers are becoming more picky, you know?
Picky in a good way.
Yeah, they're willing to pay for quality.
They know what they want.
And they want more than just drinking a bottle of wine.
They want the whole experience.
They want the story, the atmosphere.
Yeah, if a cultural shift is happening.
It really is. And Sula is riding that wave.
Right.
And that shift, it brings both opportunities and challenges.
Right. Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. The companies that can adapt, come up with new ideas.
Innovate.
Yeah, and really connect with people.
They're the ones who are going to do well.
Exactly. The ones who cling to the old ways.
Might be in trouble.
Yeah, they're going to have a tougher time.
So Sula's focus on wine tourism, their premium brands, their efforts to reach new customers, like through the canteen stores department.
It all suggests they understand what's happening.
And they're adapting.
Exactly. They're not just reacting.
They're shaping the trends themselves.
Yeah, they're creating a whole culture around wine.
A lifestyle.
A lifestyle, exactly.
It's pretty cool to see how they're pushing boundaries.
It is.
Challenging that old image of Indian wine.
Yeah, they're not just making wine.
They're building a brand.
An experience, a whole story.
And that resonates with people, especially nowadays.
But let's be real, Indian wine still has a ways to go.
It does.
Before it gets the same recognition as, say, French wine, or Italian, or even Australian.
That's true.
But that's also what makes this so exciting.
It does.
There's so much potential.
So much room to grow.
And Sula's leading the charge.
They are. They're paving the way for others.
Right. Elevating how people see Indian wine.
Both here and around the world.
And with their commitment to sustainability,
Yeah.
they're setting a good example.
Not just for wineries.
But for businesses in general.
Exactly. Showing that you can be profitable and responsible.
I like that.
Yeah. It's a good message.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening.
It has.
We've uncovered a lot about Sula.
A lot about the Indian wine market.
And the trends shaping the industry.
It's a fascinating world out there.
But I think the most important thing we've learned here is there's always more to the story than what you see at first glance. Absolutely. Those headlines, those first impressions,
Right.
they can be deceiving.
For sure.
It's about digging a little deeper.
Yeah.
Looking at the details, understanding the whole picture.
That context.
Exactly.
Like with Sula, their revenue's going up,
Uh-huh.
but their profitability is down.
Yeah, and that's a big deal.
Huge.
You wouldn't know that just from skimming the headlines.
Exactly.
So it's a good reminder.
To be curious.
Always be curious.
Yeah. And to question what you see on the surface.
Don't take anything at face value.
Yeah. And I have to say, I was surprised by some of the things we learned about Sula.
Oh, yeah.
Their commitment to sustainability.
Mm.
That focus on creating these unique wine tourism experiences.
Right.
And that, kind of unconventional approach to distribution.
Yeah, they're thinking outside the box.
They are.
They're not afraid to take risks.
And experiment.
Exactly. Which is so important these days.
It is.
The world's changing so fast.
Right. Can't just stick to the old ways.
Nope. Got to be adaptable, innovative.
Got to try new things.
Absolutely.
And it seems like that's resonating with people.
It is. They're building a brand that's about more than just wine.
It's a lifestyle.
A lifestyle, an
A
experience.
feeling.
Exactly. A connection.
And in a market that's getting more and more crowded.
It is.
That's a smart move.
They're finding ways to stand out.
To differentiate themselves.
Yeah. They're not just selling a product.
Right.
They're selling a story.
An emotion.
An aspiration.
So what does all this mean for someone who's maybe thinking about investing in Sula? Or even just someone who's curious about the future of Indian wine?
Well, I think it's a cautiously optimistic picture.
Yeah.
There's potential there, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's not a sure thing.
Right.
They've got strong brands. They're expanding.
New customers.
Yep, appealing to a new generation of wine drinkers.
But they're also facing some challenges.
They are.
And that profitability, that's going to be key.
It is, in the coming quarters especially.
So do your research.
Weigh those risks and rewards.
And decide for yourself.
Exactly. It's a company with a good story.
It is.
But it's up to each person to decide if they believe in that story.
And if they want to be a part of it.
This deep dive, it wasn't just about Sula Vineyards, though.
Right.
It was about understanding how to really look at a company.
How to go beyond those headlines.
And form your own informed opinions.
And hopefully it's made you a little more curious.
Maybe you'll try some Indian wines.
Yeah.
Learn more about the industry.
Maybe even plan a trip to a vineyard.
Who knows what you might discover?
The journey of learning never ends.
That's the truth.
There's always something new to explore.
A new perspective.
A new insight.
Keep that curiosity alive.
And you'll be amazed by what you find.
Absolutely.
So until our next deep dive,
Cures.
keep exploring, stay curious, and cheers.